In the ancient city of Babylon, under the glow of towering palaces and the shadows of mighty statues, lived a man whose loyalty and wisdom would place him at the center of one of the most dramatic stories in biblical history. His name was Daniel, a faithful exile, a trusted advisor to kings, and a man whose devotion would lead him into a pit filled with hungry lions. This is the story of Daniel in the lion's den, the events that led to it, and the historical world behind one of the Bible's most iconic miracles. To understand Daniel's journey, we must begin decades earlier. Around 605 BC, the Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, conquered Jerusalem. Many young men from noble families were taken into exile, among them Daniel and his friends. They were brought to Babylon, a city known for its massive walls, hanging gardens, and advanced culture. Babylon was powerful, wealthy, and deeply rooted in its own religious traditions. For someone like Daniel, who believed in the God of Israel, this was a world very different from the home he once knew. Yet Daniel quickly distinguished himself. He was intelligent, disciplined, and had a reputation for integrity. He served under multiple kings, first Nebuchadnezzar, then Belshazzar, and finally under Darius the Mede, the ruler who appears in the story of the lion's den. Over time, Daniel rose to a position of great responsibility. He became one of the top administrators of the empire, known for his honesty and wisdom. But as often happens in places of power, not everyone appreciated his success. Under King Darius, the empire was divided into 120 provinces, each governed by officials called satraps. Over them were 3 administrators, and Daniel was one of them. In fact, Daniel performed his duties so well that Darius planned to promote him to oversee the entire kingdom. This decision created jealousy among the other officials. They searched for a way to accuse Daniel of wrongdoing, but they found nothing. Daniel was trustworthy, loyal, and never misused his authority. Unable to find any fault in Daniel's work, his rivals decided to attack the one part of his life they knew he would never compromise: his faith. They observed that Daniel prayed 3 times a day, kneeling at his window and facing Jerusalem. It was a habit he kept faithfully, even in a foreign land. The officials realized that if they could create a law that conflicted with Daniel's beliefs, they could trap him. So they approached King Darius with a flattering proposal. They suggested a decree stating that for 30 days, no one in the kingdom could pray to any god or human except the king himself. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown into a pit of lions. In the ancient world, kings were often treated with godlike honor, so the idea appealed to Darius. Without realizing the trap, he signed the decree, making it unchangeable according to the laws of the Medes and Persians. When Daniel learned about the new law, he had a choice: stay silent for 30 days, pray in secret, or continue his normal practice openly. Daniel chose faith over fear. He went to his room, opened his windows toward Jerusalem, and prayed, just as he always had. His enemies were waiting. They caught him praying and immediately went to the king. When Darius heard the accusation, he was devastated. He realized he had been tricked. The law was designed specifically to target Daniel. The king respected Daniel deeply and spent the rest of the day trying to find a way to save him. But once a decree was signed, not even the king could change it. The law had to be carried out. That evening, with great sorrow, Darius ordered Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." Daniel was lowered into the pit, and a stone was placed over the entrance. The king sealed it with his own royal seal to ensure no one would interfere. That night, Darius could not sleep. He refused entertainment, food, and rest. His thoughts were consumed with worry for Daniel. The lion's den in ancient times was not a metaphor. It was a real place used for executions or keeping wild animals. Lions were symbols of power and danger. For Daniel, spending a night there meant certain death, unless something miraculous happened. At dawn, after a sleepless night, King Darius hurried to the lion's den. With a trembling voice, he called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to rescue you from the lions?" To his astonishment, a calm voice answered from within the pit. Daniel replied, "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They did not harm me because I was found innocent." It was a moment of relief and awe. Daniel emerged unharmed without a single scratch. The king was overjoyed, but he also remembered the officials who had plotted against Daniel. Darius ordered that they, and those involved in the deception, be thrown into the lion's den. Unlike Daniel, they had no divine protection, and the lions overpowered them instantly. This harsh ending reflected the justice system of the ancient world, especially in large empires where punishments were often severe. After these events, King Darius issued a new decree. Instead of commanding worship of himself, he declared that people throughout the empire should honor the God of Daniel, a God who rescues, saves, and performs wonders. This was a remarkable acknowledgement from a foreign ruler, showing how Daniel's faithfulness influenced even the highest levels of government. The story of Daniel in the lion's den has been told for thousands of years, not only for its dramatic plot, but for its deep meaning. Historically, it reflects the struggles of Jewish exiles living under powerful empires. Politically, it reveals the dangers of jealousy and corruption in government. Spiritually, it teaches about courage, integrity, and trust in God, even when the consequences are life-threatening. Daniel's story continues to resonate today because it speaks to anyone who has faced pressure to compromise their beliefs or values. It reminds us that character is often revealed during moments of crisis. Daniel's calmness, discipline, and faithfulness show that true strength is not in force or power, but in inner conviction. His survival in the lion's den is seen not just as a miracle, but as a moment where faith overcame fear. Even in the center of one of the world's most powerful empires, Daniel stood firm, and through his courage, a story was written that still inspires millions. This is the story of Daniel in the lion's den, a narrative of jealousy, danger, unwavering faith, and a miraculous rescue that echoes across history.